Hey Usman, thanks for being with us. Many congrats on your film. It was excellent. It was just something so fresh out of not just Pakistan, but South Asia in general. And you must be really proud of yourself.
Thank you very, very much. No, I'm extremely grateful. It was a very long and difficult journey to make this film, and I'm grateful that I got to work with a remarkable team both in Pakistan and internationally to bring it to life. And yeah, just nothing but gratitude. So thank you.
Well, many congrats. And once again, thanks for your time. Just to kick things off, if you could kind of take us back to the beginning, like what first sparked the idea for the glass worker? Why did you feel like it had to be kind of done through hand-drawn animation? And also, like, if you could kind of touch upon, like, you come from a music background, correct me if I'm wrong. So I'm really curious, like, how did that shape the storytelling and just everything? There were so many unique decisions that I want to talk to you about. So just let's start from the beginning.
So I've been obsessed with animation and film since I was a child. I've been drawing ever since I could hold a pencil, and I've been playing music ever since I was 4 or 5 years old. So music and art were a big part of my life growing up. Um, with music, it was easier to do the things I wanted to do in Pakistan. With film and especially with animation, it never occurred to me that I could even pursue this uh, as a path because there is no, I mean, the film infrastructure in Pakistan is obviously very small and lacking, and animation is a distant dream. So I never allowed myself to think like that. And I was such a fan of animation and obsessed over it so much and did it so much as a child. And I knew that I don't really want to go work in Japan. I didn't entertain that idea either because I was so familiar with how the Japanese animation industry works. So it made me very nervous. And I thought, okay, what can I do with the skills that I have? And that's why I started pursuing music in full force. I picked up guitar at the age of 16. I'd been playing classical piano um, and started writing my own music, started writing my own orchestral compositions. That wound up taking me to TED, where I spoke and performed at the TED conference in 2012. That was amazing. And then I got invited back to subsequent conferences. And it was actually while I was at TED that I started seeing all these amazing people just pursuing their passions and not letting the world dictate or society dictate what they can do and what they can't do. So when I saw that, I started thinking maybe animation is possible. And I distinctly remember um, in 2012, Elon Musk was at TED talking about Hyperloop, which was this tunnel-based transportation system and thing that he was working on. And he was talking about SpaceX. And when he was talking about SpaceX with Chris Anderson, this was in 2012, so I was 20, 21. I distinctly remember going, oh, he's doing things in space. I can do animation on Earth. Suddenly, the problem didn't seem so big, whether I was doing it in Pakistan or anywhere else. It didn't seem as difficult. And this was when Elon Musk was an inspiring figure, obviously. But I think that put me down the path to pursuing this, and I started developing the Glassworker and not thinking that it would take me 10 years to make this movie, which it did end up taking. But I just kept my head down and kept moving forward and somehow got through to the end.
Well, you've done an excellent job. And it's crazy it took that long, but it also makes sense that when you have to do something that ambitious, that, time should never kind of stop you from doing that. I'm curious, glass blowing is a central motif in the film, like both visually and narratively. That's such a unique choice. Like, how did you decide that?
So when I was 14, I saw the Murano glass blowers in Italy. And I remember being blown away by how they were making the glass. The end result is amazing and the end result is beautiful, but the way they were shaping the glass, heating it up, blowing into the pipes and then working with it so quickly, and then creating all of these amazing patterns and shapes. I thought, why has nobody made a film on this? This is incredible. And I just tucked it away at the back of my mind. And then I remember in 2007, when I was 16, a movie called Perfume came out, and that tackled the art of perfume making, which was also incredible, and also had this amazing, disturbing murder mystery side plot going on. But I remember watching that and saying, so we have a movie about perfume making, how come we don't have a movie about glass blowing? And then 7 years later, in 2014, I said, okay, I'll make that movie.
Very interesting. I love Perfume. I think it's such a
Yeah,
fantastic film.
it's a wonderful film.
Um, yeah. Um, when you, I guess, something I really liked about your film was that the fact that it was about war and kind of the effect that has on people. Was there a particular emotional takeaway, or like largely when you went in, when you started this film, did you know it was going to be about this, or did it evolve? Did it get to here? Again, what was the starting point for thematically, if I may?
I wrote the story in 2013, and it was very much affected by the things that I was going through as a 22-year-old, what it means to be an artist in a country like Pakistan with all of the conflict happening around us. Just feeling a little out of place, trying to understand and find my way around the world, and then just my naive understanding of the world at that point. The story very, very much reflects that, but I wanted to just put my pacifist views in it and say that uh, whatever happens in war, it's the people who always end up suffering. So that's something I built the film around. But the film is primarily about what I was speaking about earlier, just what it means to be an artist, what it means to be a creative person. Both Vincent and Elise are, I would say, two aspects of uh, I would say my personality, where one, because I'm an artist and animator and illustrator, painter, so the craftsmanship side, Vincent's character is able to explore that. And then I'm also a musician. I'm a composer, and I play a bunch of instruments. So capturing that in what Elise is going through and growing up playing classical music, what it means to play classical music versus writing your own music. I wanted to explore all of those themes and ideas in the film. And the version of the story that we have is pretty close to what I had originally written, but we worked with a wonderful writer, Moya O'Shea, who really came in and added a lot of things into the story that I was too nervous to add in the beginning. Because I was like, how will we make a film like this in Pakistan? I don't want to be too ambitious. I'd rather make this one and then make the next one. And Jeffrey Wexler, who's the chief of international of Studio Ponok and one of the board members of Studio Ghibli, he came on board early on in the project and said, be as ambitious as you can, and we'll figure it out along the way." And I'm glad they gave me that push because I'm very happy with the way the film turned out.
That sounds very interesting. I'm curious to know your screenwriting process, because it seems like you had a lot of interesting collaborations right from the screenwriting process. So if you could tell us about that a little bit.
Currently, I'm also working on the next film, so I'm writing the story for that. And what I found is what happens with me is I'm able to assemble the story beats very quickly. Uh, like I've been writing and coming up with stories uh, for a long time, and I feel like I'm able to do that fairly quickly. And then the refining stage, I would say the film is constantly, or the story is constantly in a flow state. It's a work in progress till you finish everything. And specifically with animation, because you have the script, but then you have to storyboard the whole film. And I took it on myself to draw all the storyboards for the Glassworker. I wanted to make the film the way I understood how animated films are made, which is through the Japanese animation pipeline where the director draws all of the storyboards, and obviously the Miyazaki school of thought and how he approaches his films. He doesn't use a script. He's a genius. But I had a script, but then the story kept changing as I was drawing it. A lot of things that worked on the page might not work in composition, or that I was drawing for the storyboard, or location might not work. So I would say that my process is interesting. I mean, I don't know. I wouldn't call it unique, but I what I tend to do is I have a stopwatch when I'm drawing. So I let the movie play out in my head. I imagine all of the shots, and then I stop the stopwatch, time all the shots, and then we cut them all together. But coming back to the screenplay stuff, I don't know. I tend to come up with the thing fairly quickly, and then we keep refining it as we keep going. And sometimes it ends up very different from how we envisioned it in the beginning. Sometimes it's exactly the same. But I enjoy that process. I enjoy that state of flow and not really holding on to something too hard and letting it evolve as the film progresses.
Okay, that's very interesting, and I'm very excited for your next project. We'll all be looking forward to that. I'm
Thank you.
curious to know your casting process because I thought it was really, again, just as all your decisions were so interesting. I thought it was really cool that you casted someone like Dino and Muru because Dino is specifically known as a radio voice. Muru, who is probably one of the most popular mainstream, one of the first YouTubers, and I always thought the way he spoke Urdu, his pronunciation was actually something I had picked up about him, and I always appreciated that. So just curious how what your casting process was like.
Thank you so much. For I'll talk a little bit about the English version and then I'll get into the Urdu casting. Uh, but with specifically the two leads, I knew very early on what kind of direction I wanted the characters to go in. And for both the Urdu and the English, Mariam and I, we did the voice acting for the animatic and we experimented with a lot of things. Then for the English version, we worked with David Friedman, who has dubbed a lot of Studio Ghibli films. So it was a huge honor to work with him. And we made it very clear early on that we want to work with South Asian talent. South Asian British cast was primarily what we were looking for, and we got to work with the wonderful Sasha Dhawan and Anjali Mohindra and the amazing Art Malik as some examples for our English cast. For the Urdu version, I knew from the very beginning that I wanted to work with Muru and I wanted to work with Dino. I told Dino later, but I had been telling Muru since 2016 that, you know, when this is done, I want you to voice the protagonist. And he was very kind and he said, sure, I'd love to when the time comes. Not knowing it would be 8 years till we finally got him in the recording booth. But I wanted to work with him specifically because I loved the way he spoke. And when I was looking for the other voices, I didn't really care about what the actors were doing and who they were. I wanted to find the right sounding person for the character and not for them to act too much. I wanted to get their normal speaking voice and then inflect in that. And specifically with the Urdu version, the dubbing process in Pakistan is interesting because a lot of the work that is done in Pakistan is very sing-songy, very overacted, and I wanted to kind of tone that down and make it more natural. And growing up in a family where Zia Mohyuddin is such a prominent figure, I had to make sure that the Urdu was good. Uh, so I focused a lot on the talaffuz, how everyone spoke, and of course the writing itself. So that was an interesting process. I wanted to make something that people could see a few years down the line and just be proud of our language. Urdu is a very खूबसूरत बोलने वाला था. Urdu is a very beautiful language, and I wanted to make something to try and preserve that.
No, fantastic. Did you guys have auditions for the roles, be it English, Urdu? Like, what was that process like?
For the English version, we did a few. I wouldn't say auditions, but we sent out a version of the like a little synopsis, a few lines to people just so I could hear their voices. And we cast people primarily on how they sounded for the English one. Art Malik was just incredible because he sounded amazing. So uh, we were very grateful to have him. And Sasha Dhawan, who's worked in The Great with Elle Fanning and in Doctor Who as well. So we got lucky with those people. But I was just looking for, or searching for the right sound. For the Urdu version, I knew I wanted Mariam to voice Elise. That was a decision I had made very early on. I wanted Muru to voice Vincent, which was a decision I made early on. And Dino, I knew he would be the right voice for Malik's character, because I've known him. He was actually the first person to invite me on their show in 2008 and play. I played guitar on his show, and I've known him since then. It was me, Sharmeen Obed Chenoy, and Dino on that show. So I got to meet Sharmeen there, and when I was selected for TED, I knew her through that as well. So I knew I wanted to work with Dino in some capacity. For the rest of the cast, I guess the only person I really auditioned, because I knew I wanted to work with the Grips Theater Group, which my father was in, and people like Khalid Anam and Faiza Ghazi, great voices who I wanted to have in the film. The only audition that we did would be for young Vincent, because there's no way I could have gotten a child to act that way. We had to get a young woman who could make a husky voice and actually be the younger version of Vincent, and also be able to not imitate but inflect like Muru. So it was fairly tricky for the Urdu version, because with the English one we worked with the amazing Teresa Gallagher, who is wonderful and a great mimic as well. So she heard Sasha Dhawan's takes and kind of copied the way he spoke. Urdu was tricky only for that character, and we did 3, 4 auditions till I found the right person for the role.
Very interesting. Just coming to the visuals now. What what were you going through in your head when you were figuring out the world building? Because again, it was very unique. It wasn't Pakistan as we know it, right? You had done this, which I really appreciated. And a part of me was wondering, was it because thematically you were touching upon certain things that may be controversial in Pakistan?
No, exactly that. I wanted to stay as far away from any controversy as possible, because I'm not making any sort of political uh, statements with the piece. I just wanted to make a generalized comment on humanity through the film. And if I had localized it in Pakistan, then it would have become some sort of statement from me that this is my worldview, this is what I believe in, which is so far from the truth. I didn't want any of that to get wrapped up with the film. So I thought it would be smart to create a fantastical setting and get hints of Pakistan, hints of other places from South Asia, and of course, Pakistan was heavily colonized. There's a lot of colonial architecture in the country. So get all of those influences into the film and just create something new, create something different that local audiences will be able to identify with in Pakistan, and international audiences won't find it so alienating. They'll find something they're familiar with, and also be able to suspend their disbelief and just appreciate the world for what it is. So that was a very conscious choice early on. And I didn't ever want to base the film in Pakistan. For the next project, I am exploring those ideas, and that's what I really want to do. But for this one, I wanted to be as far away from any sort of controversy as possible and just talk about humanity. And we're all humans at the end of the day, and this is our human experience that we go through when we experience things like this. And that I hope I was able to achieve that.
I think so. I mean, it resonated with me, so I can speak for myself. Um, how did you tackle the art direction, lighting? Were you working with HODs? Was that something you came up with when you were drawing the images?
So I had storyboarded the entire film. I had come up with the early designs for the characters, and I had basically created the world, the sandbox for myself to play with. I drew the airships. I did everything in the start before there was really a team. And then as the team grew, we had various people heading certain departments. Mariam was the head of art direction, Mariam Baracha. Usman Riaz was the producer on the film, so he was overseeing everyone's timelines and making sure the film is delivered and managing the day to day. Amir Rifat was our animation director, so he was managing the animation team, and then Sophia Abdullah was our character designer, and she was managing the character design team and assisting with the animation. And me, as the director, I was drawing the entire film, and I was assisting in every department as much as I can. And then once I finished the storyboards, I went straight into animation, straight into production board design, which is you finalize frames for animation. So there was just a lot of drawing, a lot of hats needed to be worn, a lot of reviews. I was involved in every single review to just get the film to look the way I saw it in my head and the way I was conceptualizing it. But again, as I said earlier, I got to work with a remarkable group of people who believed in my vision and helped me bring it to life. And none of us thought it would take as long as it did. It did, and that certainly took a toll on everyone, but I'm grateful we were able to pull it off. Um, and also, the producers that came on board later as well, like Manuel Cristobal, who came on board, he was a huge guidance because I had drawn a 2 hour version of the movie. The original storyboards are 2 hours long, and I drew them in great detail. So it's almost like if I ever release the storyboards, it'll be like a director's cut of the movie. The film was initially from two perspectives. We had Vincent's point of view and we had Elise's point of view. And as I discussed it with Manuel, he said we have to hone this into just one point of view. And then we had a discussion. Obviously, we have to go with Vincent's point of view because he's the protagonist of the film. It's called The Glassworker. So getting those multiple points of view out, we worked with Manuel's editor in Spain, Jose Manuel Jimenez, wonderful editor who has edited some of my favorite movies. So it was great to, in the animatic stage, work with him and just come up with a way to just weave through the story I had drawn. And we were able to pull it off. But again, it was a tremendous learning experience. I got to work with so many remarkable people, so I can't just say it was me, but I know that I pushed the most and really wanted to get this done, and that certainly took a toll on me too. But the process was something that I'd love to go have another shot at, knowing how difficult it will be. I think the first time I had no idea. I mean, you read about these things, and I've watched so many behind the scenes documentaries, but you don't really know till you're experiencing it. And to experience it for 10 years of my life, uh, I'm shocked I don't have gray hair by now, but I would have loved to know how difficult it would have been.
I guess on that note, what was it like to start up Mano animation from scratch? What That must have been a challenge setting something like that up in Pakistan, where normally there's a lot of, I guess, VFX and post-production work, but hand drawn animation, I don't think really exists, not before you guys at least.
It was tricky because there's no infrastructure for it. There's no courses taught in universities. There's nothing but hobbyists and enthusiasts for it. And I'd like to think I'm one of the more obsessive enthusiasts. So I knew a lot going into it, and I wanted to find people who thought like me. And I was able to do that to a large extent. And I'm very grateful that when those minds came together, when everybody was at the studio, we kind of reverse engineered the entire process. It was very difficult to find people who believed in the work they were doing. Everyone loves animation. Everyone wanted to be a part of it, the talented people and artists who we found. But to be part of something consistently and to do it for the love of the craft, that's a very big thing to ask of people, especially in a country like Pakistan. So, I mean, I harbor no negative feelings, obviously, because I understand everyone's situation, but it was very frustrating. People would come, they'd stay for a few weeks, and then suddenly they'd be like, this isn't for us, and they'd go, and you've invested time and resources into trying to train them. So it was an interesting journey. And it was like that for the entirety of I would say, the 8 or 7 years that collectively everybody worked on it. I worked on it in isolation for a few years before we really ramped up things at the studio. And then towards the end of it, we worked with outsourcing studios in Europe and in East Asia to finish everything. It was tough. And it wasn't just the people in Pakistan, it was also the people outside of Pakistan, because animation is it's a hand-drawn animation. It's a very difficult industry. Um, so when I had said earlier, I wish I had known how hard it would be. Uh, I'm realizing that now, but um, yeah, I wouldn't have it any other way.
I mean, I'd imagine you're going to be an inspiration for many years to come after what you've pulled off. Just a last couple of questions before we wrap. I think it's important to ask you about the scoring process
Hmm.
because I know, my introduction to you was. Funny thing is, I was working at MTV at 2008 when you came for that show with
Oh
Dino,
wow,
so I saw you behind the scenes. Yeah, little mill crossover, multiverse
that's
crossover.
amazing.
But so yeah, what was the scoring process like? I'd imagine that was something that came to you much easier, probably easier than the animation process at least. What was that like?
So the way I started the project, I began drawing the characters. And this was when, again, there was no team, there was no studio. It was just me sitting at my desk. And I didn't draw digitally then either because I was just familiar with drawing on paper. So I would draw and then I would paint it with watercolors. And I would wait for the paint to dry. And my piano would be right behind my desk. So I would wait for the painting to dry. I would turn around and just write something that's inspired by what I had drawn. And a lot of the music for the film actually just came in those early stages. The main theme that is a central through line in the entire film, that's a piece called The Glassworker's Melancholy. And I wrote that in D minor, and it progresses into this waltz. And that came very, very quickly. And then the music would go in another direction, and then I would turn around and draw something else, and then paint that, wait for the paint to dry, go back to the piano and write the next piece. So the skeleton for the score formed there. But then while I was making the movie, again, because our days were so long and I was involved in so many reviews and I was drawing the film and then aspects of the animation and a lot of the keyframes, etc. Like while I was doing that and working with the team, there is no way I could have scored to picture. So I asked my closest friend from Berklee College of Music, Carmine DeFlorio, and my other close friend, Jose Carlos Campos, can you please come on board on this project? I'd love to work with you. And Carmine, I would love for you to be co-composer on this film. And he had been familiar with the things I was writing because the film was like the genesis of the movie happened in front of his eyes while I was at Berkeley, and he would listen to me writing these pieces and give input there. So he was very familiar with the skeleton of the score, and then he was able to come in and a score a picture, but b take some things that I had written and then transpose them to a major key and then write his own scores in that. And then I was like, oh, this is amazing. Please write something else. And then he started writing his own scores, and we would sit together and analyze the scores together. One thing that we collaborated a lot on was Elise's performance, because that piece had to be, uh, it had to sound naive because it's the first thing she had ever written on her own, but it also had to sound like there's something under the surface there that could be beautiful, and the piece could blossom into something amazing. So trying to capture that with the simplicity of the motif. I think that there are four notes in the start, which is ba da da, and then we transpose that and we keep going. That was very, very important to me. And we sat and we worked on it for a few days till it was at a place where it sounded convincing that this is somebody's first composition, but wow, there's a lot of talent behind what this person has written. So that was a lot of fun. And I know it'll go over a lot of people's heads when they hear it, but it mattered to me that we cared and we put in those details into the music. So that was a lot of fun, and that's really how the music and the score came together. I couldn't go for the orchestral recordings. They happened in Peru and Venezuela because I was so busy with the production on the film. But Carmine went, and him and Jose worked together. Jose was the sound engineer for the entire score. and they worked with the orchestra. Carmine conducted them. We worked with a string quartet that was used for the diegetic music of the film. All of that, they did a brilliant job, and I'm so grateful.
Wow, that sounds amazing. Last question. You've made your first feature. What kind of advice would you give to young filmmakers, more importantly, animators? Like, what is your big learning?
Um, well, for animators specifically, I would say please be prepared for how difficult it is going to be. Like the one thing that I wish someone had grabbed me and told me, this is going to be one of the hardest things you ever do. I am saying that it's going to be difficult, but if you're able to get through that, it will be one of the most worthwhile things you have ever done. And the journey, the learning never stops. And it's an amazing journey if you ever want to go on that. For filmmakers, I would say there's no one. There's this wonderful quote from Walt Disney, which I kept using throughout my meetings with all of our investors and other people coming on board on the project. He loved films and he loved movies, and you need to love film to be a part of this world. And again, the same thing. It's difficult, but I think what Walt Disney said early on really inspired me because I want to, inshallah, make lots of movies. But he said, "We don't make movies to make money. We make movies to make money to make more movies." Just go with that approach. Don't think that one movie is going to solve all your problems and you'll have all the answers when you finished your first film. Like I'm sitting here with this film finished and feeling like I have less knowledge now than when I did when I started it. But the learning never stops. Be curious constantly and keep striving for perfection. You're never going to get there, but yeah, keep moving forward and work as hard as you can.
That's amazing, Usman. Um, once again, thanks for your time. Congratulations. You've made an excellent film. We're all really excited to see what you do next. And yeah, I mean, I hope you make not a film not every 10 years, but hopefully every couple of years we see something from you.
Yeah, no, believe me, I never ever want to do that again. I never want to
Yeah.
spend on a movie the way I did. I want to do it better, and um, it's a miracle making one movie. So if I'm ever blessed with another miracle and the chance to make another one, like I've said in everything that we were talking about, I'll take what I've learned from the first one and try to do it even better. And yeah, inshallah, I hope I get that opportunity.
Really looking forward to it, Usman.
Thank you.